September 11th that not only took the lives of close to 3,000 Americans, but has also been used to destroy the basic liberties and freedoms, not just here in the United States, but in the rest of North America and across the world. Governments everywhere are using it as a pretext to torture, murder, and spy on their populations. And different military industrial complexes of the planet have enriched themselves on the back of the 9/11 fable and those that were killed.
I dedicate this to all Americans because we're all affected by September 11th, 2001. I suggest that the planes were guided by tracking beacons within the buildings. This situation explains how the modified aircrafts hit their targets with such precision. Tracking beacons would also arm the incendiary devices that were within aircraft to go off at the appropriate time. Here we can see the first plane going into the building, just like a guided missile. We can see in this animation that the plane hit directly in the center of the building. The pilots of the planes were not that good, so there's no other explanation other than a guided beacon for the droned out military crafts. We can see the second plane coming in now. Once again, we can see the precision in which the planes hit their targets. The planes hit with such accuracy as to capture all of the fuselage within the building. Not even the engines flew out of the building. They wanted to destroy all the evidence that it was a military aircraft. All of the jet fuel had to burn off within an hour or so. That was only a Hollywood effect used to cover up the arming of the preset explosives within the building. We can see the strength of the building is the core. Once the aircraft penetrated the first wall of the core, that is when the explosives in the modified aircrafts were armed. This then released the thermite into the core of the structure. This is a bunk and busting bomb. This shows that you can penetrate certain depth of armor or some sort of structure before the primary explosives goes off in the area of occupancy. We have weapon systems that operate on the same idea as my theory. This is Iron Fist. It operates on two functions. The first function is disarms the guidance system within the projectile. The second function is it shoots a projectile at the projectile and knocks it out of the air. This is right before it goes off. Here it is going against an RPG. We can see it in action here. We can see here a comparison of two aircrafts. The second picture is the craft that struck the building. The aircrafts that struck the World Trade Center were carrying a payload of incendiary devices that were armed to go off once they penetrated the first wall of the core. This would allow for the payload of thermite to go down the elevator shafts. This would also explain the molten pools of metal at the bottom of the building. They destroyed the evidence that it was not a passenger liner that hit the targets. It was a converted military plane droned out with a payload of proximity explosives, which was thermite. There was significant evidence that there was more than just airplanes that demolished the buildings. As we can see in this picture, the steel is cut at a 45-degree angle. That can only be explained by a shape charge. We are looking at the first tower that was struck right before the second one. Did you see that? Let's go back. And let's play that slow. We can see 6 little plumes of smoke coming out of the windows. That could have only been done with explosives going off within the building. Those are called squibs. They're trying to use the second plane to cover up the explosives going off in the first building. It should also be noted where the planes hit the buildings. From my understanding, the higher the floor, the higher your status. They intentionally tried to make victims out of CEOs of companies. Their money that they earned in the stock market would then go back into the market. You figure everyone in that tower had money in the market. It may not be much, but it is a refund to those psychopaths. Part of the reason for all the molten debris was to destroy as much evidence as they possibly could. Just like any criminal, burn the crime scene is the best way to cover your tracks. From day one, I knew that there was a conspiracy behind 9/11. I know the story behind the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania was false. At the very least, I thought it was shot down. However, I'm now convinced that there's another story. It is said that there's no way a passenger liner crashed into the Pentagon. Many people suggest a missile, and I am going with that to support my theory. The aircraft that shot the missile into the Pentagon was a drone. It was meant to crash on purpose. They wanted to destroy all the evidence that was corrupted. At the site of the crash, there was people waiting. I believe it was the CIA. That explains why there was virtually no remnants of a passenger liner at the crash site when people got there. They also say that the crash site was not big enough for a passenger liner. As for the passengers, what did happen to them? There were also no bodies found at both the Pentagon and Pennsylvania. Hopefully nothing. Hopefully they just got new identities and were sent to Bahamas. However, knowing these psychopaths, I'm praying for them.
To destroy the basic liberties and freedoms, not just here in the United States, but in the rest of North America and across the world. Governments everywhere are using it as a pretext to torture, murder, and spy on their populations. And different military-industrial complexes of the planet have enriched themselves on the back of the 9/11 fable and those that were killed. The good news is, as was covered earlier tonight by David Ortiz, now the government, 11 years later, admits there was asbestos and that the firefighters, police, and other heroes are dying in record numbers of cancer and do deserve health care. But that doesn't mean they'll actually get it. Just incredible. They can't even get insurance to cover it. Of course, we, the conspiracy theorists that don't believe known liars, have been proven correct yet again.